if you want to get investment, don't do it when you've run out of money.
Today's guest, Richard Harpin, founded HomeServe, which in 2023 sold for £4 billion.
My friends and colleagues were saying, Richard, your days as an entrepreneur are over.
If that wasn't enough, today he leads Growth Partner, investing into and coaching entrepreneurs to help build the next generation of multi-million pound businesses.
We weren't taken seriously.
Why wouldn't people take a Brit seriously? How do you get over that fear of losing control?
I think when your back's against the wall, then you've got no choice.
In this episode, Richard reveals the 8 secrets he wishes he knew before making his fortune. This is a must listen if you're about to scale up your business, so you don't make the same mistakes he did.
So instead of losing £10,000 a month, the business started losing £50,000 a month.
Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid and Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to founders, investors, and creators who are all breaking boundaries in their space to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hi, Connie. Great to be here.
Yeah, so nice to have you here. You're so inspiring. Obviously, you built a multi-billion pound business. You sold it. Now you're an investor at Growth Partners. It's so inspiring to see that. So for our listeners who don't know you or about your journey, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and HomeServe, which is your business that you've sold, and also Growth Partners.
Yeah, so I started HomeServe 30 years ago with a business partner and £50,000 worth of investment, and ran it for 30 years before, as you say, selling it. And that was a really interesting journey of ups and downs, and nearly didn't make it on a few occasions. And there are now 8 things I know that I wish I'd known back then. And I thought I'd really like to help other entrepreneurs at an earlier stage in their journey than me. I'm a bit slow on the uptake, so I had to go to Harvard Business School a few years ago for 4 days to work out what my career objective should be for the next 30 years or my final 30 years. And after 4 days, I could only come up with 2 words. Those words were inspire, breakthrough. And I hope if you went to any of the chief execs in HomeServe that run any of the 10 countries that we operate in, they would say that I challenged them and I inspired them, and we achieved more than we ever thought was possible.
Oh, wow.
So I thought what I want to do is see whether I can put that skill to work as an investor and put my own money backing other entrepreneurs. And that was the basis of setting up Growth Partner.
That's so inspiring. I'd love to discuss Inspire Breakthrough, but before we go into that, just for context, what does £50,000 mean like currently, adjusting for inflation? What would be that an equivalent of in current days?
I think it'd be a few £100,000 now at least. The important thing was it was all of my life savings and all of my business partners. And perhaps we'll come on and talk about it when talk about whether you should take investment and when, but certainly not when you run out of money.
How old were you at that time, and what was your background before, and what made you invest all of your life savings into the business? I mean, I've done the same for Astrid and Miyu, by the way.
I think about half of entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurs and the other half fall into it. I don't know which you were, but I was definitely the one that was born an entrepreneur. And so I started running my first business when I was 6 years old, breeding New Zealand white rabbits and selling them on to friends.
Oh, I love that.
And then the cross-selling was when the friends went on holiday, then I would take in their rabbits and I ran a rabbit kennels.
Oh, wow. Vertically integrated.
So that was my first business. Then I became a children's magician and did children's parties every week when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, and then developed into tying fishing flies when other kids my age, so this was probably 1976.
This is your jewelry business, isn't it?
This is a link into the jewelry business from fishing flies sold to fishermen for fly fishing, to cutting off the end of the hook, putting a kidney wire on, and selling them to teenage girls in hair salons for 99p a pair. Much cheaper and not as good as the jewelry that you've developed and sell.
I love that. What were the jewelry called?
I was going to call the earrings danglers. I got a bit of marketing help, a marketing consultant on a government scheme, and this person said, "Richard, you can't call those earrings danglers. It infers something unseemly and organic. You should call them hookers." So with my £100 marketing budget, that was just enough to send out a press release to 100 radio stations, TV stations, and newspapers. And the headline became "Hookers Set to Hit UK High Streets." And several months, hookers earrings were in fashion and did really, really well.
Yeah, it was a hit. I love this story. And you started your career at P&G, so that's quite a traditional, I guess, corporate career path, isn't it?
I thought I really needed to learn about business in a big company. So I joined Procter & Gamble in Newcastle in marketing. I was the marketing assistant or brand assistant on Fairy Liquid. That's why my hands are so soft. And I thought it was a great experience. There were 13 of us straight out of university, and we were learning on the job. We were socializing together in Newcastle and talking about work and marketing and how you do it, learning about pricing, promotions, manufacturing, you name it. And it was really good grounding.
And how long were you there for? And how old were you when you started HomeServe?
So I was at P&G for 3.5 years, stayed to make it to brand manager, which is like the mini MD of running a brand, a business.
That's quite a quick progression, isn't it?
It was about average. A few people did it quicker, quite a few people did it slower, but I was running businesses on the side, and once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, so I didn't just want to work for somebody. And the business I was running was buying houses in Newcastle, refurbishing them for young professionals, and it all went well, other than the tenants would call on a Friday evening saying the boiler's broken down, we've got a block drain in the backyard, or there's water pouring out of a radiator, and we could not get a Geordie plumber for love nor money on a Friday evening in Newcastle. So that's when my business partner and I, who was also a brand manager at Procter & Gamble, said, that's our big idea. We'll set up an emergency plumbing business.
Yeah, and you earlier talked about the times when the business almost went bust. Can you tell me more about those challenging times?
Yeah, so we'd set up that emergency plumbing business. We called it A1 Fast Fix originally to get to the front of Yellow Pages for the plumbing and heating section. And the work came in, but the cost of marketing was really high because people only have a plumbing emergency every 5 years. And unless we overcharge customers, very, very difficult to make a profit. And we certainly weren't going to do that. So we'd hired a couple of Geordie plumbers, and the cost of the business meant we were losing £10,000 a month. So 5 months later, we'd run out of money. That was a key moment. And I'd always say, if you want to get investment, don't do it when you've run out of money. Do it when you're in a position of strength. Maybe you want to de-risk the business and pay off your mortgage, have a bit of capital to develop the business. We were in a really difficult position. And this was 1992. The bailiffs arrived from Customs and Excise to take away our office furniture.
Wow.
Fine. Fortunately, we didn't let them in. And then we had to go on a quick tour to try and find somebody that would lend us some money. And I thought there was a good link between water utilities that were being privatized back in the 1990s and a customer plumbing service. So we went around all 15 of the big water companies and a couple of the smaller ones and said, we've got this great business in Newcastle upon Tyne. Do you want to invest? And they all said no, with one exception. And that was a little water company just north of Birmingham. And they said, well, we've been looking at a plumbing service, and actually, we will put in some money. We'll invest £500,000, but we want 50% of the business. We did it. And I think if you said my second secret to building £1 billion business is get an investor, it's not just about the money. It's about somebody that you can work with that can add some extra value. And this water company brought credibility, so we could then go and sign up other water companies on an affinity marketing type model.
Yeah, wow. You were in a very dire situation, but it kind of all worked out. It was the right partner for you, not just a financial investor. And how did you like think so quickly on your feet? You just had 5 weeks to think about this idea and call everyone up.
I think when your back's against the wall, then you've got no choice. And we know that the most successful entrepreneurs are determined, persistent, and therefore you've got to sort of work out what you're going to do and then get on and do it.
Yeah. And you said you had a co-founder. Did you have the co-founder at this point? How like did you have your co-founder throughout the whole journey?
I did, but he was never worked in the business. He was always a non-exec. We'd got another couple of businesses that were set up, the property management company, and we'd got a marketing management consultancy. So he took over running those, and I focused full time on HomeServe.
Okay, that makes sense. And do you come from an entrepreneurial family or background? Because you seem to just have like a lot of this entrepreneurial spark from age 6.
My great grandparents, they were mill owners in Huddersfield, which is where I was born. They worked in what was called the shoddy industry, which was taking old fabrics and recycling them. So really worthwhile, very successful. But along came the Great Depression of 1929. And like many other businesses, they went bust. So that's why my father became a civil servant, a chartered surveyor, but working for the government and not taking any risk. And my mother was an occupational therapist. So I think maybe my entrepreneurialism came from earlier generations of the family.
So he went all the way the other end and then you came back.
Yeah, and then was really worried about me becoming an entrepreneur and was I going to lose all my money? And I came this close to doing that. And it wasn't just once, but there was a big lesson in you've got to find the right business model. You need to copy and pivot until you find it.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so Astrid had put in £500,000, which was great. But fundamentally, we didn't change the business model. All that happened was I grew a business model that didn't work. So instead of losing £10,000 a month, the business started losing £50,000 a month. And the only consolation was, at least it wasn't my money. It was the water company's. But a year later, we were back in the same position. We were down to our last £10,000. We hadn't got the right business model. My friends and colleagues were saying, Richard, your days as an entrepreneur are over. You better go back and work for Procter & Gamble. And you know what? On those occasions, you think, this is my last opportunity in life to be an entrepreneur. I was desperate to find the right business, and I'm not going to give in now. And I think sometimes in those situations, you have a bit of luck. And I had a bit of luck. And that was, I found a little water company in another part of the country, in Surrey, and they developed a plumbing insurance scheme. £50 a year, Sutton Water would cover the underground water pipe in people's gardens. So if they had a major burst, then somebody would come along and dig it up and replace the underground water pipe. So I looked at their product, copied it, improved it by adding in plumbing emergency cover and block drain cover. And with the final £10,000, we sent out 1,000 mail shots and 38 people sent in their check for £50. That was a 3.8% take-up rate from direct mail. I remember getting on my office desk in front of the 23 people that thought they were about to be made redundant and saying, yes, we've made it. And we had. Almost the rest is history. We rolled out the model to every other water company in the UK. Then we took the business internationally into France and then into America, where we signed over 1,000 water utilities and electric companies. And that was it. But it was making sure that you find the magic model, keep copying and pivoting until you do.
Yeah, that's incredible. Let's go on to 8 secrets to building billion-pound business. So you started contributing to the Times, and you're very well known for your 8 secrets. Can you tell me briefly about the 8 secrets?
Yeah, these are the 8 things that I know now. And if you said, what's my big regret looking back on HomeServe? It was the fact I didn't know them right at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And so I've taken those 8 things, studied them long and hard, and turned them into those 8 secrets to build a billion-pound business. And I feel now it's my moral obligation to help every other entrepreneur in this country, because business I don't think is that difficult, but it's really difficult to learn by trial and error. There are tens of thousands of business books out there. Which one is right? Which one is going to tell you how to build a really big and valuable and purposeful business?
And sometimes they tend to be theoretical as well, right? Because they're not necessarily written by ex-founders. And this is very fresh. So like all 8 points, copy and pivot, find an investor, get some mentorship, coaching.
Yeah, maybe I should stop you there, because I think we've talked about those first 2, Connie. So shall I talk a little bit about why is it important to get a coach or mentor?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was really probably not until 2010 that I thought I got a great guy that was running HomeServe America, but the business was moving forward quite slowly. We launched there in 2003. And by 2010, we're still only making $10 million profit over there. And I thought, who can help me be really successful in America? Because many British entrepreneurs fail over there. And I came across this guy called Nigel Morris. He was a Brit, but he'd lived in America for 18 years in Washington, D.C. He was the co-founder of Capital One, the credit card company that we've all heard of. They set up in America first, and then they came to the UK. And I thought he's the guy that can help bridge the knowledge gap between Britain and America. And so I wrote to him, I emailed him, no response. I sent him a DHL package, confidential, important, and still no response. I then thought, and this was 11 p.m. one evening, I'm going to try calling his office. So I rang the number, and lo and behold, Nigel Morris himself answered. It was 6 p.m. East Coast time in the US. And I said, Nigel, I'm a struggling British entrepreneur trying to make it big in America. And will you help me?
What did he
say?
say?
I remember your letters and your emails. And I'm really sorry I didn't respond. But persistence pays. So next time you're in America, I'll give you an hour of my time. And I said, well, Nigel, it just so happens I'm in Washington, D.C. tomorrow afternoon. And of course I wasn't, but I got on the next flight out of Heathrow. I was in his office by 2 p.m. and he gave me 3 hours of his time.
Oh, wow. And you stayed in touch and he became your mentor.
Yes, but it was really just the questions that he asked me. The first one, Connie, was he said, so where are you based over here? And I said, oh, we're in Miami because the claims handling for our home assistance product is done by Mapfre Assistance. Their office happened to be in Miami. So it was logical that we took an office and a desk in order to keep the costs down. And he shook his head violently and said, absolutely not. You really don't want to be in Miami. You won't get serious American business people. And he was right. All my staff either wanted to go to the beach at 4 o'clock or smoke dope. So we took his advice and we left Miami and we moved our headquarters to an hour north of New York, Norwalk, Connecticut. The other question he asked was, so who's your chief exec over here? And I said, oh, great guy. He ran the UK and I sent him to America. And he's doing a really good job, and started shaking his head again. Definitely shouldn't have a Brit that is running America. You really won't be taken seriously. You need to have an American. And again, he was absolutely right,
Why is that? Why wouldn't people take a Brit seriously in America?
because Americans want to deal with Americans. If a big utility in America is entrusting their brand and their customers, then they want to know that it's a local American company with American management. And we weren't taken seriously. I remember sitting in a meeting with my British chief exec that had lived in America for a few years, made that clear in the big utility meeting. And at the end of the meeting, they said, so when are you two on the flight back to London? So it is really, really important, however good your Brit is. And the Brit that was over there running HomeServe America was fantastic, but could never be as good as having a local American that was the face of HomeServe over there.
Yeah, I guess relationships are always nuanced and you need to
Yes.
understand the culture.
So I really think that find a mentor that can help you. If you persist, then somebody will. Ideally, find somebody that is older and wiser, that has made the mistakes and got all that knowledge and experience in the back of their brain.
And how would, I guess, you approach a mentorship or mentor? Would you set up to meet up with them regularly? Because that's taking up a lot of time for someone who's really busy. Or like, is 3 hours enough? Or would you have like multiples of mentors? I have like, great people around me. So I would call like a lot of people my mentors. Is that a good
Yeah,
approach?
I think that how often you see them depends upon how much you think you can get out of them. I do think that you should change your mentor over time. So when I acquired an online marketplace called Checkertrade in the UK, so a really good William Tell jingle, Checkertrade, checkertrade.com, and acquired that business back in 2017. And it was an online platform. I was not an expert in online marketing and thought I want to go and learn from others. So I tracked down the ex-chief exec, now the chairman of Booking.com, Steve Corfer, the co-founder of TripAdvisor, and then a guy called Scott Forbes, who was the chairman of Rightmove here in the UK. And I thought I can learn from those guys. So moved on from Nigel Morris and acquired a new set of mentors.
And what would they be getting from you? I guess like sense of like feeling rewarded.
There can be two-way mentoring. And I think particularly younger people that are very digital now and that sort of first nature can help the other way around. So I think it can be two ways. I'm not sure that I particularly gave them much back other than
I'm sure you did.
saying that in the future, I want to make sure that I'm helping other entrepreneurs. I'm doing a bit of mentoring myself. That's one of the reasons why I've established Business Leader, to say, particularly for medium-sized businesses, I think there's a lot of advice out there for startups and very early stage businesses. Those businesses that perhaps get to over 3 million of revenue, they're already hiring 15 people and they really want to become a large company. There's not a lot of scale-up help. So I've established Business Leader membership, which is a peer group in your local area, in every part of the country, that says we will match you up with 9 other chief execs and entrepreneurs in different industries. So there's not an issue in terms of sort of competition. And you can learn from each other, combined with a facilitator that will be a mentor that you can use individually. And I think that's going to be a really powerful model, and that will help these entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's incredible. So if our listeners wanted to access this service, how, like, is there a link or?
Yeah, I think go to the Business Leader website, download a copy of the 8 Secrets booklet, and inquire about becoming a member.
I'll link this on the show notes. So moving on to the fourth, it's brick and clicks and paper, and then hire your replacement, go global with locals, evolution, not revolution, follow a not to-do list, hire a replacement. Can we talk about this? When's the best time to hire a replacement and do succession planning?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most difficult thing for entrepreneurs. We all think that we want to have control of the business, and it took me 8 years to figure out that actually I'm not very good at running the day to day. I've got loads of ideas, I've got vision, but somebody else would be much better at running the day to day. So I hired a guy in to be business development director for 12 months, and then thought he'd do a much better job at running HomeServe UK when we were only a UK business. In putting him in as the UK MD meant that I could then work on the business rather than in the business. And as a result, started thinking about international development. And 7 years after that MD joined, HomeServe was worth its first £1 billion.
Wow.
Have a guess who did it much quicker than me?
I don't know.
Guy called Ben Francis.
Oh, Gymshark.
He was exactly.
Yeah, he was incredible in replacing himself, wasn't he?
He founded Gymshark back in 2012. After only 3 years, he hired a guy called Steve Hewitt, a senior executive in Reebok, and said, Steve, you become my chief exec. And only 5 years later, Gymshark was worth its first £1 billion. Back to your question is, how quickly should you hire your replacement? As soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's so incredible. How do you get over that fear of losing control if you left someone else to run the business?
I think look at some case studies and say where those businesses have done it, they've been massively more successful. Look at businesses that didn't do that, and maybe they never made it, or it took them 40 plus years. So that is, I think, if you look at the whole of the 8 secrets, that is probably the most important.
And how do you hire your replacement? What are the considerations?
I would say that I'd met the person that I hired, and they're in my black book. It took me about 6 months to pluck up the courage and to find the money to say we can now afford to hire them. I would say go to a headhunter. They charge a lot of money, but it's worth it. They'll do a proper process. Make sure that you pick the right headhunter and the right person within that recruiter to help you find the right person.
What are your thoughts around hiring someone externally as CEO for the business, or I guess cultivating your talent within?
I think if you brought through and you've hired some really talented people, then it's less risk to promote somebody from within. So I would recommend that. I think there are many businesses out there that just haven't developed their team of directors, and so don't have the option of doing that. So do have to go and look externally. And I think in doing that, then number one, find somebody that is the right cultural fit. Don't go for somebody that's a big company person that's used to lots of red tape. They need to be down to earth, able to roll up the sleeves. They can do as well as delegate, and they're prepared to sort of muck in and really help grow the business. I think also find level 5 leadership traits. That's a phrase used by Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, and talks about low ego, curiosity, persistence, motivated not by their own career, but by the good and the growth of the company. So these are people that are hardworking, they avoid politics. So you definitely need somebody like that. And I think finally, I would say has done, can do, will do. Go out and ideally find somebody that has been a chief exec, they've been successful, and they will be successful in your organization.
Yeah, that's really great tip. What do you think about different calibers at different stages of the business in terms of management team or just team in general? Because people often think that you need different kinds of caliber when you're a startup versus when you're a scale up versus when you're a mature business.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend bringing a chief exec from day one. I think that's about the entrepreneur and their small team, copying, pivoting, proving out the model, raising some money, getting the business going. But I think you then come to a stage which might be 3, 5, 7 years in where you say, right, now is the time that I need to hire a chief exec. Hopefully, before you've done that, you've brought in a finance director, a marketing director, and they're there helping to grow the business. And ideally, one of those would make a great chief exec.
So all of the 8 secrets resonate with me, except I have a problem with the first one, copy and pivot, because I pride myself in doing things very differently. We're revolutionary, and like it really annoys me to see a lot of competitors copying us. So can you convince me otherwise that this is the right approach?
Yeah, we're taught at school that copying homework is bad. But I do think in business it's really good. And let me give you one example. That's a guy that I've backed called Craig Waddington. He's from Yorkshire. And he set up a bathroom business, selling bathrooms via showrooms on the high streets and selling to other businesses that had showrooms on the high street. And his business model didn't work. And he thought, I'm going to find a business model I can copy that will work. And he looked at Howden's, and they have kitchen showrooms, but they're on industrial parks, so the rent is low. So he copied the model and he moved his showrooms to cheaper locations, selling the bathroom suites not just to homeowners, but also to bathroom installers. And his business has really worked. So he wasn't directly copying in a market, it was from a parallel market, but it is a fact of life that people out there will copy. And I think you can copy, but you then need to put your own mark on it and improve what you've copied upon.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not necessarily about what's put out there, but it's more about being inspired by the business model.
Yes,
that makes sense.
absolutely.
You've convinced me now. The 8th point is follow a not to-do list. What's a not to-do list?
Yeah, great question. And if we had an audience here, Connie, then I would say put your hand up if you have a to-do list. And we have a small audience here and they've all put their hand up. And because everybody has things they need to do and they write them down to make sure they do them every day and every week and achieve this year's objectives. Very few people have a not to-do list. And that, I think, is even more important. Particularly with entrepreneurs, we're mainly foxes. We're out there and we've got lots of ideas looking for the next opportunity. And we want to be hedgehogs. We're very focused. We've set priorities. If anybody comes with a harebrained idea, we put our prickles up and we say, get lost. We're continuing on our prioritized journey. And that's where the phrase hedgehog strategy came from. So if you imagine for a moment 3 concentric circles. So the first one is your purpose. What are you passionate about in the business? Second one would be, what can you be the best in the world at? Even if it's only operating in a few countries. How are you going to be better than your competition? What's your unique selling point? And then thirdly, what's your economic engine? How are you going to make money out of the business? So take all of those 3, and it'd be great for people out there to do this exercise with their management team and say, right, we're going to come up with our hedgehog strategy by answering those 3 questions. And then write it down in one sentence of no more than 20 words, and then tell everybody in the business, that's what we do. And anybody that's doing anything in their day job, on their to-do list, on the list of priorities, that doesn't fit with that hedgehog strategy, needs to stop doing it and put it on their not to-do list.
Yeah, this is amazing. I've just taken notes. I'm going to do this with my team.
Great.
What is the number one mistake that founders make?
It's all about people. And we've covered it earlier. And that is they're worried to spend money on hiring really great people. And do you know what? I've never come across an example of a business that has gone bust by hiring great people. It's normally the reverse. And entrepreneurs wait too long to hire a great team. And often then they're firefighting because the business has got out of control. It's growing rapidly. And suddenly customer service suffers. Maybe those are retailers that are buying the products are let down, and then the business struggles to catch up.
Yeah,
So
I completely
really,
agree.
please recruit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, completely agree. So as an investor, what are the key traits you seek in a founder?
Yeah, and I'm glad that, Connie, you asked it in that way, because it is all about the traits and the founder, and much less about the business that they're running. So it is, number one, is that entrepreneur down to earth? Have they got a real passion? There will be big problems along the way. Have they got the resilience that they'll get through that? Have they got the persistence to keep going until somebody says, yes? Those are all things that are really, really important.
What's one advice you'd give an early stage founder?
To not be like me and making so many mistakes and then looking back in 20 or 30 years saying, there's 8 things I know now that I wish I'd known at the beginning. So read the 8 secrets and make those happen. One of the things that we've just done is a growth print. And what we've done is we've done a couple of case studies on a business called Sea Salt and their 40-year journey to implement the 8 secrets. And then one we've already talked about, which is Gymshark, and how quickly they did it and how successful they became. So really useful exercise would be to do your own growth print and plot out which of those 8 secrets you've already done. And if you've done some of them, that's great. Give yourself a pat on the back. And then which ones haven't you done? And when is it right to do them? So follow them, and also join Business Leader, because that can really help you to be even more successful. And there are 5.6 million businesses in this country today. There's no better place than Great Britain to run a successful business from. That can be a global business, but we need to help all of those businesses to grow, particularly the 110,000 that are already medium-sized companies like your own, and say, how do you become a large company of the future, employing more than 250 people? And that's going to be the key to getting this country to grow economically. We don't then need to rely upon any government and their policies. So that's the thing that really matters to me.
And where can people find the 8 secrets?
It's written in a 40-page booklet. It's available free, and it can be downloaded from the Business Leader website at businessleader.co.uk.
That's so inspiring. It all links back to the 8 secrets. Thank you so much, Richard. That was such an inspiring chat.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow me at Connie Nam, Astrid and Miyu at Astrid and Miyu, and the Unboxed Instagram page at unboxed_founder confidential. See you next week.